there's actually the perception that FHA has so many rules that sometimes it's hard to get a seller to accept an offer with an FHA loan. Whether it's real or not, that's the perception. So what I'm going to start with is, what is FHA? Why does it exist? I'm going to give 3 examples. The first example is silly, and it's the most common one I hear. The second example of what FHA is the answer I usually give, and it's wrong. Even though it's wrong, it's the one I give. And then the third example, let me know in the comments below if this was news to you. So FHA, a lot of people make this confusion because it has F and H and FHA. So they think first time home buyer program. That's actually not who it's for. So when people say, what is FHA? The silliest answer I get, and again, the most common, is it helps first-time home buyers buy a house. Like, that's why it exists. And that's actually not why it exists. It's not intended for first-time home buyers. It's actually a pretty bad product for first-time home buyers to use. Everybody says, well, it's only 3.5% down. Right. An owner-occupied conventional loan is only 3% down. 3 is less than 3.5. So if your goal was to get a low down payment, conventional is better. With an FHA loan, mortgage insurance, MIP, MIP, that's MIP, PMI, all these insurance terms that mean somebody's backing your mortgage in case you default, the lender will be made whole, or at least closer to whole. With FHA, it lasts the entire length of the loan, meaning the only way to get rid of mortgage insurance on an FHA loan is to sell the property, refinance, pay off the mortgage, versus conventional, where if you put less than 20% down, yeah, you get mortgage insurance, but as soon as you hit 22% equity, that insurance drops off. It says automatically, but I would reach out to your lender and say, hey, are you tracking where my equity is? So if conventional is better, FHA is not meant for first-time homebuyers, but that's what everybody associates it with. I said everybody, I meant most people. And like I said, this is the most common answer given when people say, what is FHA? So that's the first example. Second example, what do I tell people FHA is for, even though it's wrong? This is the wrong answer. Why does FHA exist? And what's its purpose? And what does it do? Now, even though it's wrong, a byproduct is that it does what I say it does. So it still does what I say it does. It's just not its intent. It's not its original purpose. It's not what it's done several times. So the example of FHA that I give when somebody says, what is FHA loans? I say, a horrible loan product for first-time homebuyers because of all the things I talked about. But I say, the Federal Housing Authority backs mortgages with FHA programs because they want to help people get on the property ladder who have worse debt-to-income ratio and worse credit scores than the conventional loans will require. So it helps somebody who isn't coming from the best position get on the property ladder. That's what I say almost every time the FHA loan conversation comes up, unless I'm talking to somebody who's I'm not a history buff, but I do like to track things to their origin. I like the origin story of concepts. So if somebody's just saying, when should I use FHA? You got a bad debt to income ratio, you got bad credit, but you got a great deal and you're ready to buy a property, FHA might be your only option. So for single family house with an ADU, and duplex, conventional, in my opinion, almost always wins out as the owner occupied option. I've even used that over top of my VA loan. But if you have bad debt to income ratio, bad credit score, FHA might work for you. One time where FHA kind of stands out as a little better than conventional is if you need a low down payment and you're buying a triplex or a fourplex, FHA stays at 3.5%. Now, a lot of lenders will go 3% first-time home buyer on conventional to buy a house. First-time home buyer means you haven't owned a property in the last 3 years, right? So there's a timeline associated with that. Single-family house with an ADU counts as a single-family house. When you go to duplex, a lot of lenders will say you need 10 or 15% down. Fairway Mortgage right now is saying it's either 10 or 15 is the only option, but you can find lenders that'll do 5% down conventional on a duplex. I've done it. Lenny Mike's done it. Lenders say different things every couple of weeks, so you're gonna have to shop around until you find that one, Zhao. Just keep hunting, you'll find it. Zhao is a friend of mine who actually we met and we answered some questions, and I didn't hear from him for 6 months, and then he came back and he says, "So I bought a duplex and living in it. What's the next step?" I love it when people take action. So that's FHA versus conventional. Which one is the preference there? So I'd say, but if you have these reasons, bad debt to income, bad credit score, triplex, fourplex, this one FHA might be the way to go. First example, the silly answer. It helps first-time homebuyers, not who it's meant for. Second answer, the one I give that's wrong, is that it helps people get on the property ladder who have bad debt to income ratios or bad credit scores. But the third option, the actual reason why the FHA loan program exists, and then I'm going to answer the question of why so many rules, because during a live stream where I was just giving stream of consciousness and not really answering any questions, JNYC asked this question and I wanted to answer it in a format where he can get a full answer. And in this video, I am going to continue to answer questions after this intro. The reason the FHA program exists, what it does and what it's intended for, has nothing to do with getting people on the property ladder. It has nothing to do with solving credit score issues, debt to income issues. The reason it exists is because in 1934, if you're watching, that's a little bit before I was born. In 1934, as a country, we were recovering from the Great Depression. Not recession, not housing crash, not stock market crash, but a depression. Over 2 million construction workers had been laid off nationwide, and it wasn't looking good. So the Federal Housing Authority was actually created, and they came out with the FHA loan product to spur the economy. The purpose for the FHA program is so that when there are bad economic times, builds can happen. So a lot of us associate the FHA with buying property. That's what we think it's for. But the FHA program has actually done things like finance hospitals, reverse mortgages, home renovations. And yes, the approximately, 44 million FHA loans that have been done are primarily for buying single family houses. About 50,000 of those loans have been done on multifamily, creating over $4 million in multifamily rentals. So why does the FHA program exist? They had this massive crash in our economy, but we needed things to be done. So the government, which never does anything wrong, stepped in and said, we're going to back mortgages. That's what this program is for, so that these loans can happen to spur the economy. And there's actually been 4 times where this has been, proven or vetted, utilized. In 1948, 1958, 1970, and 2008. These were recessions where the use of FHA loans spiked over 5%. So it was a growth in the use of FHA, because during bad economic times, you still want mortgages to happen so that employment can happen, so that we can have economic growth. But you have people during those bad times that have lower credit scores, worse debt to income ratios, and to make mortgages continue to be used to help the economy, the FHA loan program exists. So it exists as a tool to fight recessions. So you'll see that when we have times where the housing market is struggling, we're having a recession, owner-occupied FHA loans usage will go up. So the 3 things that you'll hear when people talk about FHA: 1, it helps first-time homebuyers. You should now know and respond to anybody who says that that's a very silly answer, because that's not who it's intended for. 2, the answer that I give, because most people aren't cerebral enough to give a crap about history, will say, it helps you get on the property ladder if you have a bad credit score and a bad debt to income ratio. But the real reason the FHA loan exists is to help the economy. It does not. Here's the thing it doesn't exist for, and why I'm going to answer JMYC's question. The FHA program does not exist to create investors. Process that. Does not exist to create investors. This is why Matt the Lumberjack Landlord's program of 4321 exists. The FHA program doesn't say, we would like you to start with a fourplex and then buy a triplex and then buy a duplex and then buy a house with an ADU and then buy a house and then buy a bigger house. No, that's Matt's genius way to use the system to the advantage of the person buying properties. The FHA wants the loan product to be used so that you can buy a house, finance a rehab, finance a hospital, finance a reverse mortgage, something that's going to spur the economy, but it's not with the intent of creating investors. So if you're working with a lender and you live in a house, you own a house, and you want to use an FHA loan, one of the other restrictions is that you can only have one at a time. So you have to refinance out of the FHA loan if you use it to get your house that you're in now, and you want to buy another one. The lenders aren't supposed to allow you to purchase an investment property. But since they don't really have control over what you do, if you start with a house and want to go to a duplex, it would take a very strong reason. It's closer to work. It has more bedrooms per side. Each bedroom is larger. It's closer to daycare. It's closer to the better school district. You have to probably submit a letter of explanation explaining why you're doing something that isn't to help you get on the property ladder with bad debt to income and bad credit ratio. Bad debt to income ratio and bad credit. So that's why if you're in a fourplex, the FHA loan program is designed to allow you, because you have to ask the government permission to do everything, it will allow you to go from a fourplex towards a single family house. So you can go 4 to a 3 or 4 to a 2 or 4 to a 1, right? So Matt came up with, if you buy a fourplex, triplex, duplex, single family, you're moving in the direction of FHA, so you'll have less resistance from your lenders. Once you get to a single family house, FHA will allow you, again, it's begging the government for permission to do anything, to go to a larger house or a house that's closer to work or better school district for some justifiable reason. So one of the reasons why I've not used an FHA loan is because I owned a single family house. I had a bad debt to income ratio, a pretty good credit score, but FHA might have been an option, except I already owned a house and I wanted to buy another house as an investment and rent my house out. I didn't have the down payment. So I moved into an apartment and rented my house out for 2 years to get rental income on my tax returns to fix my debt to income ratio. So I better qualify for a conventional loan, use a conventional loan to go to a duplex. So I didn't have to explain why I went from a single family to a duplex. A couple of years later, I went from a duplex to a fourplex, again, conventional loan because I didn't have the restrictions of the FHA. So JNYC, that's why the FHA has restrictions, because its intent is not to create investors, although it doesn't limit you from buying properties that are investments as long as you do intend to occupy for at least a year, and you can buy up to a 4-unit property. With VA, it's 5, just in case you're a veteran watching. That trips up a lot of people. So the purpose of the FHA is to spur the economy, shorten recessions. As a byproduct, just as in like accidental, hey, it also does this. It gets people on the property ladder who have worse debt to income ratios and worse credit scores than conventional lending will want. If you have the option to purchase a property and you're choosing between conventional and FHA, almost every time for a single family house, house with ADU and duplex, I would recommend conventional. It's a better loan product on the long list of reasons. However, bad debt to income, bad credit score, triplex, fourplex, now FHA starts to look good. I hope that kind of explains why FHA has the restrictions. And then another restriction that FHA has, since it's intend to occupy, is they want the property to be livable. So some of the things during appraisal are a little more strict than with a conventional loan. It might be just a little, but the perception with some sellers is that it's a lot because there's already enough hoops to jump through. You don't want to add more. So sometimes it's easier to get a cash offer accepted. It's easier to get a conventional loan accepted, and VA can be lumped in with FHA with the same kind of extra hoops that you need to jump through. So now you know the 3 things FHA, my preference, what I say, why I say it, and the origin. That video up to this point, I'm waving my hands because that's probably where it's going to be cut off. Eventually will be pulled out and made as a separate video that would be what? How long has this been going on? Does it say 14, 15 minutes? Good. intros usually tend to drag on for me. Now I'm going to go through, answer all the questions in the chat, hang out for a bit. I have a hard stop in a while, over an hour. I've got the BiggerPockets boot camp today, and starting, I think, next Saturday, 4 p.m. Pacific next Saturday is the course videos. I did a poll here on YouTube, who people wanted noon Pacific, 1 Pacific, 4 seems to be the winner. So anybody taking the course now throughout the month of August, every Saturday, there will be a course Zoom where you can jump into the Zoom, interact, go over portfolios, strategies, next options. And for the next couple of days, there's still $100 off the course if somebody were to sign up, giving you access to all of those calls throughout the month of August and recordings of all of the calls that happened the previous months where we did that. Howdy, everybody. In Javanish, howdy. And do you make sure the telephone lines are working in the unit or only when requested? Seems like nobody uses them anymore. All cell phones. I delete them. Am I so lazy that I haven't deleted and drywalled over, taped, mudded, sanded, textured, painted? I don't think I've done that extent, but I put plates over them. And plates over most of the cable accesses because most people are going Wi-Fi smart devices, so I don't have cable access in each room. So the less things that can break, the less problems there can be. So I'm trying to think, do I have a phone? There might be a phone line in one of my rentals that I haven't deleted yet, but the idea is they get deleted as soon as they're doing something. So that's a good question. No, I don't make sure that they work. Although I live in Washington State in a fairly populated area. My rentals, all my units are between, I say between, they're around Tacoma and Olympia, Washington, but not in Tacoma or Olympia, Washington, because Tacoma is becoming as insane as Seattle is. And I wouldn't own property inside the city in South Tacoma. Not even if it came with free tacos. Tacoma's like stocks to me. Brian Keith, howdy. Wade, howdy. Wealth building journey, gonna have to get on Dividend Dave. He's not first, second, or third, fourth today. Nice. Wait, it's muggy in Florida today. It is a terrible 68 degrees, sunny here in Washington. All night ahead. Make sure to hit the like button. Every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings, which I believe is factual. Frank Contreras, howdy, good to see you. I actually talked about you, Frank, in a recent video on One Rental at a Time, in a good way. Thank you again for all you do. We just signed our closing docs 15 minutes ago on our latest property. Awesome, congratulations. We'll have to talk about that next week during the course video if you can make it. That would be cool. I think maybe that was when I think you were going under contract last time we were talking. And then Anna K took back a message to make me wonder forever and ever and lose sleep tonight what she actually said. Buzz Tune, howdy. Anna, howdy. All Nighter Hider, congrats, Frank. Federal Housing Authority, yes, that's what FHA means, not first-time home buyer. Falls under HUD. Yep, Jesse, howdy. And everyone, greetings from Norway. I accidentally started to learn Norwegian for about 15 minutes one time. I worked at a CDL school and the owner retired, new owners came in, and the spouse is from Holland. And I went on Pimsleur. I love languages. I like to learn languages. And I thought, I better learn Dutch because she's from Holland. And it's not called Dutch, it's called Nederlands. And I bought the wrong one. And about 15 minutes in, I was like, this doesn't sound at all like her accent. So, howdy in Norway. Julie Anderson, howdy. Hopefully you're not dying in heat there. I nominate Jesse for the long distance award. I'd have to do the math on if Norway or Japan counts because Dividend Dave's went to Japan. And I went to school in America, so they don't teach us geography. So I actually don't know where most of these countries are. Laura, howdy. Happy to know you made it back safe. I'm in Melbourne, getting a unit ready for tenants to move in the first. Nice. I actually just helped a friend have a tenant turnover. This is a friend. I kind of want to make a video, but the hate jumps out pretty strong. This hate actually came when I did a couple shorts on Christian and Cody small multifamily strategies. But my friend had a tenant that had a life event, and as a favor to the tenant, we served them with eviction papers. Now, if you watch my content, you actually know that that was a favor, because then the tenant was able to go and get 2 months of their rent paid and found assistance to get into a unit that they can afford with the thing that changed in their life event. So my friend's unit went vacant on the 15th. Went and helped with, didn't do it, delivered the LVP flooring. Somebody else did it, helped with a little bit of paint, switched some lights, which much respect to electricians, because is there any light that's made the way the stupid thing in the ceiling is? Every single one in every single room was different, but got it done, listed it, and massive. So the real estate crash is real, and rents are going to drop. You're going to see that all over. The demand for the unit was through the roof, filtering through to the ones already lease signed, already got the deposit, already got the first month's rent. It was kind of a challenge to filter through to the tenant that she was choosing. So congratulations, Lauren. Hope that goes well. The Wealth Building Journey from FHA website. We provide mortgage insurance on loans made by FHA approved lenders. Who knew? Right. All-nighter hider graciously accept this shining award. Nice. Jason C. Howdy. I've come across something similar to FHA called the NACA program, Neighborhoods Assistance Corporation of America. If qualified, it can help you buy up to a 4-unit, but also it's owner-occupied. Right? Owner-occupied probably for a year. Check with the lenders. Some's 10 months. Some might be longer than a year. There's the NACA program. There's a different version of it. There was something that I used around 1999 that covered the mortgage insurance, was zero down, could wrap the closing costs into the loan. So I financed 105% of the loan. Walked away from the closing table with a check for $1,200 and bought a house. First-time homebuyer programs exist, and they change every few months, maybe every couple of years. So it always pays to research what's out there and check with different lenders. Julie Anderson, improve the basement to its fullest use. The uses are endless. Nice. I turned it into basically storage, not livable space. There's too much exposed dirt and cement. I just have I mentioned I'm lazy. Matt Motley, howdy. Frank Contreras, big misconception in my head. 2 to 3% calculations for closing costs. Mine always seem to be around 5%, and when I add in what I pay to buy down the rate, it ends up being around 9%. Am I missing something? Buying down the rate is something a lot of people don't factor in, and I've bought down the rate so far before I make a declarative statement and look foolish in retrospect. Every time I've bought down the rate. If you're planning on selling in the next 3 to 8 years, you might want to run the math and see if it's worth buying the rate down. You can actually run a calculation on that. My hope with my properties is they all perform better than all of my marriages. Actually, until death do we part. So I buy down the rate every time, and then I just gamble that if the rates were to drop in the future, yeah, I did in 2020. I refinanced, even though I bought down the rates when I got the mortgages. I refinanced in 2022 from in the 6s to like 2.933, right around the 3% range. So 9% on closing costs. That's an interesting one. I think I'm going to have to run all of mine and actually see. So you have an appraisal. I count that as closing costs. You have an inspection. I count that as closing costs. If title insurance, I'll count that. So I'll have to total it up and see what I come up with. And I'll run the numbers, Frank, and I'll talk about that next Saturday with you. Wealth Building Journey. Are there things to look for when looking for a loan product? Anything to watch out for? So if you ever see a question where somebody says, I'm paying $17,000 to have a deck installed, is that a good price? Right? If you see a question like that, I'm paying, what am I paying? $4,800 to have 6 windows put in. Is that a good price? They're energy savers, whatever. No one knows, and no one can tell you. No one's investing in your market. No one's investing today when you're buying the product. Nobody knows what the cost of materials are today, except 2 or 3 other contractors that would actually do the job and give you a price for it. So when you're looking for a loan product, nothing is good or bad, and no one can tell you that. If I said I have a loan right now with a 3% interest rate, is that good or bad? That doesn't tell you anything. When did I buy the property? When did I refinance the property? Was it owner occupied? Is it a HELOC loan? Is it a second mortgage? Is it all of those? You don't know any of those details, right? So whenever you're looking at loan products, you get a loan offer from one lender in email form. So I say in writing, but email's basically the same thing. Tell me what the rate's going to be. What's my APR? What's my how much the cost to buy down? Get it all in writing. Present that to at least 2. So I usually go 3 total or more lenders and see who will beat it. That's what will tell you if a loan product is good. If 3 or 4 lenders can't beat what you have currently today, that's your best loan option. If they can beat it in writing, get that in email form, go back to the original lender and give them a chance to keep your business. Right? This is a finite universe. You're going to be working with these lenders for decades, refinances, whatever. Give them a chance to keep your business. They know how this is working. They know how this works. So that's what I would do, wealth building journey, to get the best loan rates, to make sure you're getting the best loan product. Compare lenders. Jesse, jag kommer från USA, jag snackar lite norsk. Yeah, no, it's close enough to where I could probably cipher what you were doing there. Here's the problem with learning languages via Pimsleur. So 30-second, 20-second side note from real estate. Here's how you learn a language. You buy the Pimsleur on Audible, right? It's 30-minute lessons that you can practice over and over until you're ready to move to the next one. They use the same method that I used at the CDO school. They give you a bit of information and then they ask you about that information, because when you answer a question with something that you actually know, it creates a long-term memory. You don't want to answer something that's vague, your mind won't remember it. That's why you don't really usually remember your dreams. Your mind won't commit the space to something that was possibly not real. So with the Pimsleur method, when you get the thing and they say, I drive a white truck, and I ask you, what color is the truck that I drive? When you say white, you will always forever remember Dion's truck is white. That's how the Pimsleur method works. You do that for about 6 months and you get the basics down, the grammar, enough of the words, and then you go to YouTube University and you look up kids cartoons in the language you're trying to learn. Dora the Explorer in Dutch, right? Or Spanish or Russian, or I tried Cantonese and it didn't work because I don't have an ear for it. Every word sounded the same. But that's how I learned the language, which lacks the, now you speak a language, ik spreek een beetje Nederlands, maar ik spreek het niet zo goed. I can't read it because it's all audible. Wealth building journey. Good question, Frank. I usually estimate closing costs around 5%. Yep, we'll have to run that and see what the actuals were. If you're trying to run the numbers, let's say you're a brand new investor. This is why I like these questions. It sparks content that I would like to create. How do you know if you're accurate? Right? You look at your leads, whether it's from sources I don't recommend, Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, right? And you go, okay, this is my area average rents. This is what my rates would be. This is what the price is. Let me calculate my yield. How do you know if you're even close? I ran from MLS searches with multiple agents. So I prefer that over the open to the public stuff online. But how do you know if you're even accurate? You're running all these things. What if you are missing something? Frank, what if we've been missing something? Here's how you do it when you're just starting out. Contact an investor who has rental properties in the market that you're investing, or in a market that you're fairly familiar with, because this is just an exercise. This is not where you're going to invest. And say, I would like to run the numbers on your rent. I'm going to use my interest rates, your purchase price, what I think the current rents are. Tell me how close I am. Then you can ask them, if they're willing to share, what's your interest rate? Try to run the numbers that way. And they don't have to share their exact numbers with you, but you can ask them, am I even close? They'll be the one to point out, you missed that in New Hampshire, there is no sales tax, there is no income tax. So property taxes are significantly more than another area, right? You might know that the local investor points out something that you didn't think of. Testing your math on knowns is the way to get better at the skill. Jason C, I'd love to visit Norway someday. My grandmother's father's from there. Cool. Jesse Thomas, totally off topic. I think everyone wants to know, what is your giant mugs? What's in your giant mugs? This is very sad. Here's what's in my mug today. Because out of Skull vodka, And I'm out of alien vodka. And Mountain Dew is not good. But it's by itself. Yeah, it's a sad day. So what happens when you move and haven't gone and ordered anything. Joey, howdy. I think FHA has become a great option for even typical buyers with good credit. FHA rates are still a ton lower than, that is not true. FHA rates are still a ton lower than conventional, and payment is likely lower for home buyers. Not true at all. A conventional loan versus an FHA because it's owner occupied, sure, I'll give you that. But an owner occupied conventional loan, my rate on my conventional loan is lower than what it would have been with FHA. So FHA rates are not lower than conventional loans. Owner occupied conventional loans. Now you just go conventional loan on a purchase, it steps up about 0.5 point. And then you add small multifamily, it steps up another 0.5 point. So check with different lenders. That has not been my experience on finding the best interest rate. Ask Matt, the mortgage guy, because it changes every few months. I've actually seen times when DSCR loans were lower interest rate than conventional loans. So they can invert. Peter, howdy. Jesse Thomas. Extra strength water that makes your eyes water. You can't drink all day unless you start early. Peter, any recommendations on free rent management software, or should I Excel suffice? So Excel worked for me for 11 years. I didn't even start doing anything. Trying to think. Yeah, I still use my Excel spreadsheet. If you go to diontalk.com/binder, the binder course is free. Inside the binder course is a copy of my Excel spreadsheet that me and my CPA came up with on the information that they need. 16 rental units, it's always worked. The only thing that's changed in the last year, I started using Hemline, but it really hasn't. I've only got 3 units on it right now, and I haven't even done rent through it. It's not what I care about it. I want the platform to find and screen tenants because it puts the information on 30 platforms. And side note, my friend that just listed her rental is not using Hemline. She put it on apartments.com and had about 10 inquiries in a day, and then she put it on Zillow and had 20 to 30 in a day. So Zillow was more effective than apartments.com this time. For years, I used apartments.com, but not for rent collection. I have a video on my channel, how I collect rents, 3 things that matter. And yeah, I still don't see a need for rent management software unless you have, I don't know, 40 plus units, maybe. Yeah. Still at my level with now I have 18 units. I'm not using any kind of rent software. Even the Hemline is not used for rent collection. Wealth building journey is refinancing, actually recasting a loan using an existing home value and modified loan terms, normally at a lower interest rate. That's not how I would look at it. Refinancing was you owe a certain amount of debt on your property. So that's the amount. If you're going to pull money out, that's a different story. And you can recast the loan without refinancing, right? So it's a lot less hoops to jump through. Don't know that I recommend that because of what it does to the interest and principal inversion chart. But it can make your payments better, and we do focus on cash flow. Refinancing can take an appraisal for them to make sure the value is what you're trying to refinance. Sometimes lenders won't require that if you're refinancing with the current lender who owns the mortgage. Trying to think if I'm missing something in the question here. Is refinancing actually recasting a loan using an existing home value in modified loan terms? Not really, because it goes off of the new appraised value of the property for that. Normally at a lower interest rate. It's normally at a lower interest rate if you can, right? So for the last 30 years, we've seen a downtrending interest rate chart. The last couple of year, I don't want to say months, but year now, we've seen rates trending up. Fed just raised another 0.25 to where the Fed rate is 5.5. So if you can get somewhere between 7 and 9% on your mortgage, that's probably higher than where it was. That's why when people are talking about this, I want to redefine the word, even to myself, I struggle with this. People say, I want to tap my equity. I want to use my equity, which instead of equity, I want to call it the ability to put debt on an existing asset. They'll refinance a mortgage to pull money out. Well, right now, if you have a 3% mortgage rate and you pull money out and you reset the mortgage that you have, you would be doubling your interest rate at least. So I would recommend, in this case, a home equity line of credit because it leaves the first interest rate alone. And I would only do HELOC if you could pay it off before the loan adjusts. And then if not a home equity line of credit, I would recommend a second mortgage so that first one is still left alone. Joey, I recently purchased my primary residence with a 2-1 buy down conventional loan. Originally, we planned to go FHA since interest rate and payment were much better. Turns out FHA has some really funky rules regarding counting rental income. I own some other rentals. I couldn't qualify FHA and had to go conventional. Nice. Yeah, that has not been my experience with FHA. I was quoted basically the same interest rates. Actually, on one, the mortgage insurance seemed better, but it was because this is 2020. This is 3 years ago. I was looking at that fourplex and I was thinking, do I go FHA and do 3.5% down, or do I go conventional and do 20% down? Because I can. I ended up going conventional because the way the FHA was, the interest rate was basically the same. The mortgage insurance seemed less on FHA long term, but they did like 50% of it at the beginning. So the closing costs with FHA were more than they were with conventional, even though it was a lower down payment. Again, with the fourplex, I was 6.5, 7 years into investing when I bought that, maybe 8 years into investing, and I was trying to deploy the funds. I wasn't trying to go for a low down payment. Peter, anybody have rentals in San Bernardino County, California? My brother is in Kern County, right on the edge of there. So we'll see what people said. One thing to know with California is a lot of people go, it's hard to rent here. We have rent control. Not for single family houses and not for houses with ADUs and not for duplexes, as long as the house is in your name. Put it into an LLC and now you trigger rent control. Something to know if that's where you invest. Josh, greetings from Orange Beach, Alabama. Howdy. Roll Tide. Is that even close to the right area? John, Texas. Can you say howdy? How do you say millionaire in Dutch? If not, it's not very useful. You have to say that in English because like you're asking. Nazik, howdy. I remember you visited Portugal. Were you there for a pleasure trip or investing in real estate? If the IRS is listening, I was there for a investing trip. I was there to learn the area. I wanted to know, I was looking at buying a house all cash. I was going off the data from 2018 to 2020, where Portugal was affordable, and since 2020, not so much. I heard houses and apartments can be anywhere from 150 to 300,000, and the average typical, any house that wasn't touching something was a little over €1 million now, or when I was in Portugal a while ago, and apartments were 500 to 900,000. There were some called crap holes that you can get for 300 or 400,000. And it really wasn't the real estate that stopped me from buying in Portugal. It was my experience with the people. And part of that is, I think I was uninformed when I went. Had I been informed, I might have been like, oh, this is what everybody told me. When I think Portugal, I was going to the Algarve, it's the southern part. It has Florida weather, but no alligators. No, from what I've heard, no hurricanes, no tornadoes. So it had like kind of what the Florida has, but better. And it's kind of a vacation area. And when I think vacation, I think, relaxing, enjoying. I went to Colombia, you dance in any restaurant, you can have fun anywhere. The Portuguese celebrate sadness. And I didn't know that. The word, Scott sent me an article that the word is called saudade. I don't know what it means exactly, but the loose translation is enjoy your sadness to the fullest so you can experience joy. Legend quote, what is the light without the darkness? Go Tim Curry. But it was a pleasure trip too. I mean, I scuba dived, kayaked to the Benagil caves and tried all of the Algarve stuff. I think if you like nightlife, Albufeira is the place to go. If you like the beaches for swimming, Alvor was good. If you like history, Sagres was the place to go. But I didn't go anywhere north like Lisbon, Porto, or anything. I'm from Washington. I was trying to get away from this weather. And the other thing that stopped me from investing in Portugal was I talked to licensed and unlicensed realtors who basically said, yeah, everybody here cheats on their taxes. Kind of like in the United States, if you buy a car, and you pay $5,000. You go to the DMV, you present a receipt that says I paid $1,000 because the transmission doesn't work, or this was a gift. Like a very common way to cheat on taxes in the US. Don't recommend it. Apparently, that's how properties work in Portugal. The seller dictates, here's what the price is, but here's what we're going to tell the government what we actually paid because they pay the taxes. And it took me like less than 30 seconds to figure out how I would catch somebody doing that. Because the licensed agent charges 4% for the sale, or 5%, and then the unlicensed charges 4%. So there was a little better if you went with somebody who wasn't licensed. So all we have to do is go to the listing agent and the buying agent and say, show me how much you made on this transaction. And let's compare your 4 or 5% to the sale price that the seller said it was. Oh, hey, while prison is the ultimate house hack, it is not my retirement plan. Jesse, I might have missed an update. How is your multifamily bird project coming along? It's less haunted. Decided not to really utilize the basement. I've turned it into storage, basically. I'm not going to turn it into living space or make a washroom, partly because the way the drain is, it's so high, a washer dryer wouldn't go in there without a pump, and I don't want to do that. Found a little rot, fixed it. It was very cheap. Found a little foundation issue, and I was like, I don't want to buy it. The foundation's bad. $500 fixed and re-level foundation. There was a little other stuff to fix. But that unit, I did a video walkthrough with Millennial Mike when we broke into the basement to find a haunted wheelchair. And Stanley no longer lives here. I'm very sorry. It was just a spider about like that big. But what else is going on with that unit? The siding is going on next. I think that's the next step. Finish work on some interior with the windows going on, getting the windows. But an electrician, this doesn't stop somebody from moving in, but at some point the electrician is currently both electric panels are on the exterior. So I'm going to move an electric panel and replace it to the interior of each unit. Not sure how long that's going to take, but that doesn't stop rentability, which I'm expecting to be like 2 months probably. And 4,400 different deities just laughed. BuzzTune, howdy. If you want to reach FI in 10 years, is there an average saving rate you would recommend per year, or average property purchase you should try to aim for? So a lot of people, when they talk savings rate, my buddy, Dave Ramsey, talks about 15%. Here's how I look at savings rate. The target goal for savings rate, no sarcasm, and it points to you if you have a pen and paper ready. Here's your targeted savings rate. 100%. That's the goal to get to. So that first couple of months when you start, it's probably gonna be 5, 10, 15%. And I'll work with people and they'll say, I can't save anything. I'll say, well, okay, look at your income and your expenses. Can you set aside $1, $1 every month? Well, if they can, okay, now it's measured. What's measured can be improved. Turn it into 5, 10, whatever. The percentage starts small, but here's how it looked for me with 10 years. I talk house hacking because I did it. It's not required. Maybe you make more and you don't have the $89,000 in debt that was in my name that I didn't know about until the divorce. Right? So you might be in a position where house hacking isn't as required as it was for me. So I house hack. My savings rate for my job doesn't really change, but now I could save $1,200 a month that I was paying for housing into my savings rate. Did that impact my work? No, but that $1,200 is added to it. A couple of years later, I buy a duplex, house is cash flowing. I'm still house hacking. Buy a duplex that cash flows. Year and a half later, buy a duplex that cash flows. So I'm not at the 10-year mark, right? But every time that I added a cash flowing asset, I didn't increase my living for 8 years. It was 8 years before I was like, I want a Corvette. No, I want a Ford Raptor. No, I want an F-250 diesel jacked up truck. Just cycled through everything stupid that I could. But I had waited 8 years before I did any of that. The goal is to get the savings rate to at least 100%, right? And it was around the 8-year mark where I was making cash flow from the rentals about what it cost me to live, which meant every single penny coming in from my job was saved for investing into the next thing. So I never really had I want to save 15 or 20 or 30% it's what I'm not using is being saved. Every added cash flowing asset is increasing the saving. And at some point I started living off of rental income, not my W-2. Because if you need your W-2 income to live, you are not financially free or even financially independent. So at about 8 years, I hit financial independence, worked for 4 more years, hit ridiculous financial freedom. In my mind, it's ridiculous. I want you all to get to the problem where you have to go, what do I do with all of this money? Apparently you buy a house all cash, do a full rehab yourself, and then sit back towards the end and think, I wonder if I'm going to refinance my money out and do this again, or am I going to let the lazy take over? It's a struggle. So I hope that helps BuzzTune. It's not like an exact amount. It's as you add the cash flowing assets, you just keep saving more until you're saving 100% of your job, because that's when you no longer need it. I wouldn't quit as soon as it's not needed. I went with the 4X rule. Takes me, I want to say around $3,000 a month to live because I'm house hacking, but I would say 4,000 was my number. So when cash flow hit 16,000 over 4 times, and now it's about 17, maybe a little higher now, because I've had a couple of rent adjustments in the last couple of months. And once I rent the unit out here, that'll be another, so with 1,000, yeah, so it's 18,000 because the unit, the room that I was in is now rented, and I'll be renting out the other units. Currently, it's a little over 18,000. I felt silly going to work. 4X rule. Don't retire when cash flow passes what it costs you to live. But when cash flow passes 4 times, unless you are Millennial Mike, Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, or Zuber, who want hundreds of units, then you continue, maybe to continue to work. I totally understand. Wasn't my goal. I wanted the right amount of cash flow, so not the most, the right, with the least amount of units. Joey, the reason FHA rates are lower for some than conventional right now are the LLPA changes that Fannie and Freddie did earlier this year. Mortgage News has FHA at 6.7, conventional at 7.05. Okay, cool. So watch trends. There was a time in 2021, at the end of 2020, where they made a new rule on refinances. They added 0.5 point as a fee to discourage refinancing. Things change every few months. Jesse, hours do you feel about REI investing in your market? I've been looking at Seattle area for a while, but aside from recent lack of inventory, I've been hesitant to step on toes. Not sure. I think there's a typo there, maybe. How? I also assume that. How do you feel when you make an assumption? You make an ass out of you, an assumption. How do you feel about other REIs investing in your? I encourage it. I met REI stoners, and I said, look, here's the agent, here's the lender, here's how you work. This is what we do. Here's how you set up your searches. Here's how you run the numbers here. I'm happy with people investing in the area. I don't need all of the jewels. I just need one every couple of years, right? Maybe if you're trying to grow a portfolio of hundreds, yeah, there might be competition. My agent, so I have several, but there's an agent that I've done now 5 deals with. So while I have several agents with auto searches, there's this one that's proactive. Literally texts me, I know you got about 15 searches this morning that popped up from my emails, but did you look at this one? This one seems to hit your criteria. So that guy gets to work. So I don't feel bad. And I encourage everybody to get out of Seattle. Don't go to Tacoma, inside city limits of Tacoma. And if you want to come down to Pierce County, I can kind of tell you, Jesse, some places that you want to avoid. I talk about it here on my channel. You take Pacific Avenue where there's public transit. You make sure you're at least 2 blocks off. You take McKinley Avenue and you drop a nuke, whatever that would do in that area, and just avoid all of that. What else do I avoid? Inside city limits of Tacoma. Yeah, they have some new dumb rules like City of Seattle did. Let's help the renters and put some rules in, and all of a sudden City of Seattle loses 3,000 rentals. Este com saudade de boca means I miss you, but translated it means I am with longing for you. Right. So that saudade is the longing or something. Yeah. JNYC. Howdy. Thanks for showing up to the video that you spurred. Are you able to live in your new? I'm living in my new place now. As you're fixing it up, or you wait till it's done. I'm in here now. Can't move the camera and show you. I'm in a room that It's going to have LVT probably put in. I might go with LVT in this one instead of LVP. Everything else in this unit is, let me see, what am I doing? There's nothing really major here that would stop me. I do live in a place that there's work going on in the other unit, right? So I moved in right after closing with all of the spiders that are now gone. Joshua, howdy. Yeah, so JNYC, I see that you showed up a little bit late in this. If you go back and watch the first 15 minutes of this video, it was answering your question from the live stream the other day. Joshua, howdy. How large of a radius do you use for an area average rents? My new house hack is a small community of 1,500, but there are several communities within 20 minutes, including one of 16,000. So let's see if I can explain this without a whiteboard. Anytime you're looking at comps on rents, prices, those kind of things, a lot of people think area. This is where I'm looking. And that's not what I do. What I like to do is pick the highest cost of living area around me. And so that generally tends to be the more densely populated areas in the cities. So I'll pick this high cost of living area. So if you picked Seattle or Tacoma or wherever, maybe the commuters come from to the area that you're around. So if you're around a large city, pick that city. Go out about as far until you start to see this equilibrium in rents and prices, where the prices aren't as high as they are in the city, but the rents haven't really dropped yet. It's where you can find that cash flow point, right? So here's the city. That doesn't mean that out here is where that would be. It means here's the city. Draw a concentric circle. I can compare Marysville north of Seattle with Graham south of Seattle. It's in this circle, like a ring. Wedding flashbacks. So you have this ring, and I would compare rents in that ring. I wouldn't go closer to the city. I wouldn't go farther, more rural. So if you were here and then you found literally the opposite side of the city, as long as it wasn't something like this one has a port and this one doesn't, like there's Port of Tacoma, Everett Port up here, or Linwood, Muckletay, or whatever the port is up there, those would be similar to me. If I'm out more rural, I probably wouldn't go coastline with rural, right? To figure out what the circle looks like, where are the economic drivers in your area to be as close, as similar in property types as you can. All-nighter hider, got a call back now, catching up at 2 speed. So enjoy the chipmunk. Wandering Doc, howdy. Michael Diaz, howdy. At the beginning, did you change the HVAC or water heater preventively or when it was broken? I never really changed anything preventatively unless I thought it had a detectable problem. This year was an education for me. At the beginning of this year, I kind of made some videos where I talked about, here's the proactive things I'm doing. So 10 or 11 years into investing, this is when I finally said, okay, I haven't had any water heater issues, and I bought all these properties with water heaters in place. I think I've replaced one time when, like, I knew going into it that was an issue. So I got a hold of my handyman that has a plumber sub. So it's a handyman who has a plumber and an electrician sub that will come and do things for them, pull permits and do whatever we need. And I said, okay, I want to check, and this doesn't mean I would go to my properties, the handyman would go to the properties and check the ages of the water heaters. If they were inside the structure, right, so not in the garage, not on cement, but in a closet where a water heater is going to cause flooring or maybe lower wall damage, I want to replace any water heater that's 8 years old or older. And if it's in an area like a garage where it's just going to flood the cement, it isn't going to hurt anything, I want to go 12 years or older, I'm going to replace. Basically set that up to happen sometime this year. And then between April and June, I had 4, that many water heaters go out. And so those were the oldest ones. And so apparently I put the timeline, and one had been in there since 1992, right? So yeah, they only last so long. Be more proactive than that. Also, it depends on your systems. The cost for me to replace a water heater that is leaking and broken, if it messes up the floor, yeah, that's going to add cost. But the ones in the garage, when they go out, the cost to replace it because it's not working, my guy didn't charge any more to go out and do it tomorrow than he would have if I called and said, hey, let's schedule it for December. HVAC systems, I try not to buy. I have 2 properties that have HVAC and I would love to delete them. Like, I'm not putting them in where I'm at. I was an internal debate of myself of going baseboard or cadet heaters. Ended up going with cadet, just mostly space saving over anything else. A couple of other things. So let me know in the comments if I should make a detailed video on the thought process of, do I put in cadet heaters or baseboard? Probably doesn't matter unless you're doing rehab. Cadet heaters were $200 and something each. Baseboard heaters can be $70 each. Originally I didn't like cadets because you also had to do a thermostat, and the baseboard could have the thermostat or on the thing. And now they have cadets that have a little digital display, so you don't have to have thermostat. You can do it on there. Cadet heaters are in the wall, so you don't lose any space, and baseboards stick out. So those were kind of the main things. Price was a factor. I ended up putting in 6, so 3 in this unit, 3 in the other unit. That requires pulling a permit because you're basically adding a whole nother load that required another breaker in the box for the electrician to put in. Electricians are the ones who pull the permits on that, not us, at least in my state. And they pull it through labor and industry. It's not through the municipality. Here we go. Wealth building journey. Have you checked out the 80-20 principle? I haven't checked out the book. I think we talked about it in the last live. I'm very familiar with the Pareto effect. I've seen it referenced in several videos. I get the 80-20 concept. I haven't checked out the book yet, though. I'm going to have to. Joey, do you think there will ever be investors that try to set up a fourplex house hack with a new build mid-tier to luxury quality? I wouldn't see the point. So maybe. I imagine costs would be too high for rents, not high enough. Yes, that's kind of what I would assume. And luxury takes the biggest hit whenever there's economic distress, right? So in 2000, so since we've started tracking the data in 1940, there's never been a point in time where rents have gone down market-wide. There's been some local pockets where rents can be impacted, but market-wide, they've never gone down. In 2009, luxury rentals took a dip, but Class C and B went up so high that it still looks like an increase. So I think it's kind of risky to go luxury or type A. I don't want those type of tenants. I want Class C tenants. I don't want Class A, or I don't even want B or B plus tenants. A lot of reasons. One, I've interacted with a ton of people that have money, and they're terrible with their finances. They usually have more debt than they even know what to do with. But if somebody's making $200,000 a year and their IT industry lays off, it's not that easy to go grab another $200,000 job. It's possible. It's not easy. Could line up with a good time where AI companies are hiring, so they land on their feet. Good. But the IT person who gets laid off from a multiple 6-figure job, trying to find something, if that entire industry is not hiring, is kind of rough. The police officer making 80 grand can go get a CDL and is making 80 grand. Can go start working in any union, plumber, electrician, carpentry, HVAC, welding, and within a year be making the same amount of money. I've had tenants laid off, lose their job, never miss a rent payment. Unemployment is enough to cover the rent in a Class C unit. So for me, there was a long list of reasons why that's not what I would go for. And not very many people do new build to owner occupy. The build to rents are usually done by syndications, right? Large groups done together. And there are municipalities that are fighting against that. BuzzTune. Thanks, Dion. Learning a lot. I messed up my own name. Words are hard. What are some core traits or characteristics you see in people where they become successful investors? Thank you. That's a good question. We just did a video on who should not invest on one rental at a time. And I think a lot of it comes down to habits and traits, right? If you are terrible with your money, you need to fix that before you try to put money to work. You're not going to magically know how to manage a $10,000 a month income when you can't manage a $1,000 a month income. Finances is something we get better at as we get more, not something that we get really good at after we get more. You're not going to get more if you don't get good at it when you're starting. Good investors, patience, long timeline. For me, even with the barriers that I had, I set the time at a 10-year timeline, right? I had $89,000 in debt I didn't know about until the divorce. I wasn't making, I had $17 an hour income as a single parent with 3 kids. I had some pretty good barriers to starting. So I thought, in 2 years, I want to buy a house hack. And then I'm good. It's like, okay, for 2 years, I'm gonna save, work overtime, keep doing my side hustle, which was playing World of Warcraft and selling things online. I think I've been pretty clear on what a nerd I am. But for those 2 years, I never sat back and said, man, I should just quit. Real estate's taking forever. It's not doing anything. I actually knew. So this is something I think when I was 20 to 30, I probably would have struggled with. And this is an ageist statement. When we're between 20 and 40, a 2 to 4 year commitment seems like forever. Like, I don't want to start as an electrician. I got to do 4 year internship, journeyman comes 4 years later, blah, blah, and when you're in your 40s or 50s, you're like 4 years, it's got to go like that. So we could start making decisions easier. So if you're somebody like Cody or Christian, and you're on the younger side, and you can make decisions that impact decades of your life, you're going to win this game. I wasn't that person. I actually made it to 40 without ever having $1,000 in the bank, and then started to get into real estate, investing and putting money to work. So long-term patience is key. Even if you have a strategy that's going to work fast, I think seeing the actual impact is going to be years down the road. Zuber says daily discipline, doing the work every day. That's important. I agree. I think having a system that makes it easier on yourself, right? Auto searches that come in where you open up emails and you run numbers, pretty easy. Driving for dollars, mailers, going to the divorce court and looking at who's filing to look up their property records. Like all of the work that you can do to do this, the harder you make it, the less likely you are to continue following through. So the easier, the people who have the trait to make it easy on themselves, that's why I actually call my course Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person, because the systems had to be so easy. It's not easy, but as easy as possible, so that I'd follow through as a lazy person. Patience, strong motivation, right? And sometimes I talk about financial freedom in my videos instead of just real estate. And I think people get a little confused because I will list, here's a dozen reasons why I think it's stupid to go to college. But if that college is in a field that you like and it's tied to your income, that's the best decision you can make. I called something stupid that is the best decision you can make, right? And then I'll say something like, well, I chose real estate because of XYZ reasons, and this is why I don't like stocks. But if there's somebody who loves stocks, loves the charts, loves the adrenaline rush or the dopamine hit of what's happening in the stock market, that person shouldn't invest in real estate, right? So the trait is you pick an investing strategy, and I'll caveat, you don't invest based on emotions, but I think you have a better chance for success if you're emotionally invested in the asset that you're investing in. If stocks excite you, real estate might not be it. I would still encourage a house hack. I'd still say maybe add something to your portfolio over time, but focus on one asset class, master it, become wealthy, then diversify to protect it. Jake, howdy. Do you have any suggestions on getting into buying real estate for rental properties? I do. I actually have several videos on the 6 steps to getting started. So this will be the Cliff Notes version of the 6 steps to getting started in real estate. So Jake, if you have a pen and paper, here you go. Step 1, learn to save. Most people make the mistake of thinking saving means spending less. And that's a factor, but it's not the way that you save. The best way to save is to increase your income. Is that overtime? Is that learn a skill to become more attractive to your employer, to get a promotion, to climb the corporate ladder? Is it? That's what people my age tend to think. Longevity at a job will give you a reward. But we're finding in the last couple of decades that the people who change jobs every couple of years tend to make a bigger salary. So you might get a 5 to 7% cost of living raise every year, but you might get a 15 to 20% raise by a company trying to poach you from a competitor. So learning how to save is increasing income, developing a side hustle. For me, it was World of Warcraft, selling things online. House hacking to reduce my largest expense, which was buying a duplex to move into one side. And owner occupied lending is one of the easier ones to get, better interest rate, better down payment. So that's how one way to factor into starting. So increase income, decrease expenses. So as you increase your income, that doesn't mean I'm working harder, I'm getting more money, I deserve a better car. I need a bigger place because that means more furniture. It means better insurance. I need a better vacation. All that stuff comes later. So delay that. The second thing that you work on after saving, so this is step 2 of 6, credit score. Most lenders are going to say you can start looking at buying a house once you have a 610 or higher credit score. You want a 740 as the goal at 740. And sometimes when economic times are bad, they'll raise it to 760 for the best rates. So you want to be looking at that. But you need to understand with credit score that the credit score we see on Credit Karma is often 20 to 40 points higher than what the lender's seeing on the FICO score that they're looking at. So the goal should be getting it to be around 800 or higher so that you're always going to get the best rates. You can buy once you pass 610, 620, but the goal should be constantly working it up. So the first 2 things, you can be doing those for a couple of years. You haven't even talked to an agent, picked a market, picked a strategy or anything. This is how you start. These 2 things you're going to be doing now, and you continue to do it as you build your portfolio. Third thing, you want to go talk to a lender. Find a lender. My order of operations for a lender is I start with a large bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, one of the ones that everybody hates because they have the most standardized criteria. And you say, based on my work history, my debt to income ratio, my income, what can I borrow? And they'll give you a number, and then you can borrow that amount. Generally for a single family house, if you had a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, you can actually borrow a little bit more based on what you're buying. Because now you know your lending options, and your lending options might be like mine. They told me, you just got laid off from law enforcement and you started teaching people how to drive trucks. This is a career change. We can't lend to you for 2 years. You also only make $17 an hour and you have $89,000 of bad debt. You have a really bad debt to income ratio. There's no way you can ever buy anything unless you had rental income on your tax returns. Talking to the lender gave me that little clue that if I moved from my house into an apartment and rented out the house, in 2 years, I'd have 2 years consistent work as a CDL instructor. So I'm in the new field for 2 years. I'd have 2 years of rental income on my tax returns. So debt to income would mean almost nothing because now they start factoring in the rents into your purchase. But you don't know that unless you go talk to the lender. They might say, based on you having a job where you change jobs every 2 months, there's no way you can loan. You have to go with DSCR loans, right? Which you wouldn't know unless you talk to the lender. So it's learn to save, work on credit, talk to a lender. After this, way before you talk to an agent, is the fourth step: pick a strategy. Picking a strategy includes picking the market, picking the asset class, picking if it's wholesaling, flipping, buy and hold, storage, BRRRR method, all of the different things that you need to do, figure out what works best for you with your assets, your time availability, your skill sets, and lines up with your long-term goals. If you're looking to create a job and get out of your job as quick as possible, wholesaling and flipping are jobs. They're episodic. You stop working, the money stops coming in. I'm super lazy. I was working full-time and I am not an investor. I mean, well, blank out 5 seconds of your brain. I am not an entrepreneur, right? I don't want to work 80 hours a week. I don't want every single customer having a Yelp account being my boss. I'm an investor. I want to take money and put it to work in long-term buy and hold rentals that takes the least amount of work with decent cash flow, but not the best. I'd get more cash flow if I did midterm or short-term, but I'd be increasing my workload. I'd make more chunks of money if I did flipping or wholesaling, but I don't want that. I want consistent income so that I can retire. And now I never have to work again in my life, just past the 1 year mark of being retired. So that's after you pick your strategy. Does it line up with your goals? Does it meet your skill set and abilities? Does it work with what lender said your options are, or what do you need to make it work with your lender? So we're on 4 steps done. When you finally get to that 5th step, this is when you finally talk to an agent. You're 5 steps in, possibly a couple of years into this, maybe 2 months, depending on your starting point, right? But you go talk to an agent and you say, I want to start my funnels for my searches. And so you might do things like driving for dollars, sending out mailers, looking at tax records, hiring a VA to do cold calling, whatever you want to do. I talk to at least 3 realtors and have them set up auto searches in the footprint based on my strategy and market that I picked. Here's where I want to invest. This is the properties I want to look for. They send me searches in my email. I run the numbers on them. And that brings us up to step 6. So save, credit, lender, strategy, agent, rinse, repeat. The 6th step is actually look at deals. Learn your market. Take 60 to 90 days to figure out what an area average yield is, right? Yield is annual profit divided by cost to acquire. Several videos on that topic too. So you figure out, what am I going to make as far as yield goes on this property, to compare different properties to know you're buying the best one. I used to say for a long time that it's to make sure you're getting a good deal, but really what it does, Matt, the lumberjack landlord, pointed out that learning the area average, and then if you can get a 5% yield, shoot for a 7. I was getting 7s and 8s, so I shot for 10s, right? So you want to get better than area average. That protects you from getting a bad deal. So there is your nanosecond version of my course, which you can find at diontalk.com. The 6 steps to get started in real estate. I hope that made your Saturday worth logging into this video today. All-nighter header. You're in a great place, Jake. Keep coming back and you'll be answering that question in no time. The first time you do anything in real estate, it's terrifying. The second time, it feels like you could teach a course. JNYC, how do you find out if an area has roommate demand for house hacking with roommates? First thing you're doing with roommates is checking your local municipality laws to make sure that they allow more than 3 unrelated adults to live in the property together, because you don't want to run into problems with somebody reporting you there. And you might think, oh, that's pretty simple. We'll just rent to 3 people and not anymore. Well, then somebody's girlfriend moves in, wants to be added to the lease. You can lose a tenant. Second thing is check. Oh, there's a couple of apps for that. for renting by the room, you basically want to put yourself in the shoes of when you're building your rent box, right? You try to become a renter. If I was renting in this area, how many options are there? How long do they stay listed? So you can't take like a snapshot. A lot of people say go to rentometer.com and see what the area average cost is, right? If you look in an area and the rents seem to be at an average, a lot of people think, what if I rented my place and it sat empty for months and I had to pay the mortgage? Which is the fear you start with. That fear shifts into, it's not how long will a unit be empty. It's how low might I have to take the rent before I get a tenant in there, right? So it's how much might I have to drop the rent, not how long. So that's what I would do. I would take a 2 to 4 week period, like I was trying to rent a place, see how many places sit, see how many places see price reductions, see how many places offer concessions, month free, half month free, free moving truck, stuff like, those kind of options. And then see which ones are listed, pulled off, and come back at a much higher rate, which means they had so much demand, they realized they undershot their rents, because that's how I would judge demand. What rental prices are you able to demand? And once you build that rent box, that would tell me what I was looking for. All-nighter hider, investing is very personal according to one's own aptitudes. Yes, do what fits your skill set. I have decent people skills, so I self-manage my properties. I have a backbone. I can actually look a tenant in the face, and literally a couple months ago, right on the 2 month mark. No, it's a little more than that. 2.5 months ago, I said, absolutely irrelevant. I served eviction papers for a friend as a favor to the tenant. And I can actually tell the tenant, I'm doing this as a favor to you. If you don't think you have the backbone to serve eviction papers to a tenant, and know that it's in their best interest, because then I get to go to the tenant and go, here's the 5 things that you can call in this county where you live that might provide rental assistance, who will not talk to you until you have these eviction papers. This is your key to open the doors for all of these places, who then got 2 months paid, and they found a place for the tenant to move. So as a favor, the tenant's life was fixed by serving them eviction papers. If you can't do that, you need a property manager. Right. So you know what your skill sets are. Just if you don't have basics, people say, well, if you're not handy, don't invest in real estate. I should have filmed me trying to switch the lights out at my friend's place. I wasn't angry. I'm surprised the building is still standing though. I'm not very handy. I love paying handymen to do things. First couple of things I had my handyman do when I started getting into real estate, I worked next to them. I did some deck repair, did some drywall fixes. I kind of wanted to know, what does it take? What's the scope of work? So I know what a fair price is. But I'm absolutely happy to call a handyman and say, hey, get your electrician sub to go out there to this duplex and swap out the ceiling light from this old weird one to a nice LED one. I could go do that myself. But I'm lazy. And I'm not handy. And now I've had the handyman make some money on a very easy thing. And so when I call the handyman and go, I now need you to go into the crawl space at the fourplex and reconnect the dryer vent and all those spiders and whatever else lives down there. They do it and they're happy because I'm also giving them the easy work. Know your skill set and invest based on that. Jake, I'm currently in CDL school. I'll be graduating in the next 2 weeks. Nice. What state do you live in? My email is Dion, D-I-O-N, at DionTalk.com. Reach out and I'll help you with job placement assistance. I actually founded a nonprofit that's what they did. I gave it up to the school when I left. But I'll do things like, there is a video on my channel. If you're going to the school that I ran, you'll see the video because it's part of the curriculum. But there's a video here on my channel called Why Your Resume Is Not Working. And it will help you make a resume to get you a CDL job, no matter what your background was before that. So if I can help, Jake, let me know. JNYC, Credit Karma is 40 points higher than your real score. Generally, not your real score. It's the score that the lenders, because each thing looks at it differently. And it can be, I've seen a variance of up to 40 points. So you want your Credit Karma to be as high as you can. Lenders will generally look at that too, because that is a metric, but your underwriters are going to go off the one that they see. Brian, howdy. If anyone needs help with their credit, let me know. So reach out to Brian Keith. All-nighter hider. Well, Credit Karma's stroking people's egos of higher credit scores. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate the willingness to help. Me too. Wandering Doc. I have an 814 FICO on Experian. I'm going to live action Credit Karma. Let's see if this even works on camera. So facial recognition should be like an 8 something, like 8. So this is why I don't want to do that. I have to hit the X button so we can see it. Why is it not listening to me? Oh, it's dropped. 794, 795. I wonder why it says it went down. Why would it go down? Like 6 points, but it did. Minus 14 points, minus 9 points. Next trek tomorrow. So here's a thing that you want to know with credit too. The day that they check, make sure your credit cards are paid off. Doesn't matter what was on the balance for the month. It matters what's on the card the day they check it. So I hover around that 800, and that's why I don't teach credit scores. I talk credit scores. I say, look, you want yours to be around 800 or maybe a little higher, so that when they look at yours, they're going to see that 740 or higher. Where did my, there we go. I have to see the chat on my phone. If I had an 840 or an 850, this channel would teach some credit stuff. But since mine is just meh, I'll look for Brian to help you with your credit score. Old Graham Stephan stuff, 2015, 2017, had some good credit stuff on there. So Credit Karma can actually underreport scores since FICO is more widely accepted in the UK. It can be a variance. Andre. That must be Wandering Doc. BuzzTune, agreed. Rushed into things, made many mistakes. If I spent the time educating myself with all the channels beforehand, would have been so much better off. YouTube University is a powerful thing. The problem is our feed, like the things that come to us on YouTube, are based on what we watch. And to get the most views on YouTube, if I really wanted to grow the channel and have 50,000 subscribers in less than a year, I'd start making a crash video every other day. And I could look at the data. Remember, the devil can interpret every page of the Bible to benefit their statement. I could look at any data and say, here's why there's a crash coming. Here's why there's another crash coming. I could talk about, did you know that foreclosures are up 300% in a 4-month period? I could say, this is why housing crashes are going to happen. Well, of course, we had a year where you could do 0 foreclosures. So it's going to multiply in percentages. So the channels that produce a lot of content, get the most views, are, I call it fear porn. And they're basically saying, every 2 days, here's the new reason for a crash that they've been calling on since 2012 that hasn't happened yet. And even if a crash was coming, it shouldn't impact your investing. We're investing for cash flow. Rents don't come down. In a crash, rents go up. Class C and B properties in 2009, 10, and 11, rents went up because with all the people going through foreclosures became renters. Increased demand on a limited supply meant higher prices. So if you're looking at YouTube University, I agree with what Zuber says from One Rental at a Time. Block the doomers. Real estate mindset. Every couple of days, here's a reason why real estate's going to crash. Here's the property I'm looking at buying. Nick from Reventure Consulting literally goes on some news channel and says, here's why there's a crash coming. And the anchor says, if that's what they're even called on that kind of channel, you've been calling for a crash for 2 years. What's different this time? And then he goes, well, here's the chart with some information. This is why it's different this time. And the anchor goes, oh, okay. Completely giving him a pass on bad data, a bad call, costing people. Imagine if you had the ability to buy a property in 2020. And then we saw 24% appreciation, 19% appreciation, rents go up 40%. And you missed out on 3 years of that because you watched a video saying there was a crash coming. There's your class action lawsuit. The people, nobody should be telling you to wait to buy real estate, and nobody should be telling you to hurry to buy real estate. So Jake, if you're new, there's 2 things that tell you when to buy real estate. It's not the market. It's not interest rates. It's not home prices. It's not rents. 2 things. The first thing, are you ready? That means, have you educated yourself? Most investors will say, are you ready means, do I have the down payment, closing costs, and immediate repairs? Are you going through a divorce? Probably not ready right now. Are you having a baby born right now? Maybe not ready today. Are you somebody in your family dying? Like, is there some massive event going on in your life that's going to take your focus off of investing? You're not ready, even if you have the money. Second thing that tells you when to buy. So first thing is, are you ready? Nothing going on in your life. You have the down payment, closing costs, immediate repair money. Second thing is, did you find a great deal? Now, you might find it tomorrow, or in 3 years. If somebody tells you to rush or somebody tells you to wait, block that channel, because the market doesn't tell you when to invest. Julie, I would love for you and the gang to produce a video for our adult children. They don't understand the value of our knowledge. For your adult children, Julie, if every now and then you can go, watch Minority Mindset, Jaspreet Singh. He's good. He connects well with the younger crowd. And then meet Kevin and Graham Stephan, everything older than 2 years. If you can get that in front of them, that's generally, it's really hard to take a, say, 22-year-old and say, listen to this old guy who retired. Well, of course I retired, but I retired after 12 years of investing. And when you're 22, you look at somebody my age and think, well, of course he looks like his retirement age. No, if you start when you're 22 and you retire at 34, you have decades of this to do whatever you want. So I would get some of the younger content producers in front of them if possible. I see my FICO score was 805 before lockdown and then dropped to 740, but I have no debt. Everything's paid off every month. What might be going on? It could be, I lost 24 points one time because they checked the credit when there was a balance of a little over $230 on a credit card. $230 didn't impact credit utilization, didn't go above 10%. It was just a change. So I think that they literally just sensed the wind direction and no. All night I had a good call. Julie, I actually listen with an earshot of my kids, and sometimes they will ask me a question that verifies they're listening as well. That warms my heart to see their interest. I pulled off the ninja trick of making a YouTube channel, and my kids will every now and then watch a video. My daughter actually made a video with me. She was the camera person not too long ago. Knowing that the content is being created got them into it. They still haven't bought a rental. So, like credit score, I can't teach good parenting or give good relationship advice unless you want to be a serial relationship person. Ninja vanish. Did you take a vitamin today or something? You seem extra on point with all your answers. Thank you for taking the time to help us. Good point, Ninja. So normally I could blame the OPPO shares on the water that makes your eyes water. I had a little bit of head trauma while I was in Desert Storm, and I have a terrible memory. It's one of the things that's really cool to know me is I always have to say the truth because I could never remember if I told a lie. But some days I seem to function better than other days. That's the really cool with investing in real estate. You can have a bad memory. You can put systems in place to fix your problems like that. Wandering dog. Before December 2021, I had a credit card in 760. Now I have 23 credit cards and my FICO is now 814. More cards means lower credit utilization, very true, and high total credit limit, very true. High credit. So somebody pointed this out like a week ago and it made very good sense. For a long time, I kept one credit card. I only use one credit card. And I thought it had the highest limit possible. That keeps your credit utilization low. Because credit scores don't check your income. They don't even know. Those places, Experian and them don't even know where you work. But the amount of available credit that you have is an indicator of a higher income. So you can get a better credit score that way. Someone pointed out in the comment, that's not a me thing. It made sense when I heard it or read it. Foreclosures are real tricky, all-nighter hider. They report notices and seem to completely forget to report trustee sales. They do report notices and they forget that and this is from Zuber, so credit where it's due. The average nationwide average timeline on a foreclosure going from filing to actually being foreclosed is a little over 1,200 days. So 4 years. So let's say unemployment tripled right now and a bunch of foreclosures started. And that average of 1,200 to 100 days went in half, so 600 days. We're looking at almost 2 years before we get any inventory impacting the market. Wondering, Doc, as long as you pay your bills, more mortgages and more credit cards means you have a higher score, just how the algorithm works. Very true. And I set up everything on auto pay because of my memory. Lower credit utilization increases your score. A hard pull from a mortgage lender or credit card lowers your score by 3 to 5 points. I always say 6, but you're right, it's about 3 to 5. Always temporary, and the score rebounds in 2 months. And when you have a hard pull done by a certain type of lender, for 30 days, you can have multiple lenders of the same type. So you can't go to our car lot and then a mortgage company, and those aren't the same. and multiple inquiries shouldn't impact your credit score. Lumberjack Landlord recently pointed out in the video that a mortgage lender versus somebody that was doing like a refinance or a HELOC or something that was still mortgage related, but was a different type of lender, different category. He did get 2 impacts one time. So it's possible. I'll be wrapping this up here pretty soon. If you're watching my content and you're in the BiggerPockets rookie boot camp, that starts in 35 minutes. So I'm going to get ready for that. Ninja Vanish, have you thought about putting your course on Udemy? I like that platform and it might hit a higher volume of students. It might. I'm not sure about the course where it is now. It took 10 grand to put it on the Mighty Networks, and it takes around 400 a month just to have the course on there. And I was trying to do it without monetizing, but the cost of putting it on there. So I'd have to look into Udemy. There was another one, Teachable, I think was another option. And at some point in the mythical world of Futureland, I heard YouTube was looking at putting courses on YouTube. So we'll see how that goes. My binder course is free. So if you're new to my channel, if you're watching this content for the first time, I have a strategy that gets my tenants to ask me to raise the rent. You can get that course for free. And in that course, I also include my seller financing pitch letter and my spreadsheet made by a CPA and me on how I report all my income and expenses for my rental portfolio for free in that course at diontalk.com. And it's DION. Your phone is going to try to connect it to DEON. Wondering doc, but I found that the gains and made from having an almost 300,000 total credit limit and 8.1% utilization are permanent. Nice. All-nighter hider, young content creators like Cody and Christian Multifamily Strategy, or even, and we have Millennial Mike for sure. Yeah, Millennial Mike should pull in the younger. He's also got the look in the studio that looks like that. Christian and Cody, yep. So those are 3. Thanks, All-Nighter Hider. I love my memory. Have I mentioned it? But those are the 3 that I normally refer people to. When it comes to Millennial Mike, I usually talk about investing at a distance, but you're also talking about somebody who is hovering around the 30-year-old, is working in law enforcement and reaching financial freedom while almost all of the coworkers that he has are just spending every penny they make. The 5 criteria is length of credit history, percentage of total credit use, so credit utilization, credit mix, personal, student, credit cards, mortgage loans, payment history, and number of hard inquiries. Nice. Thank you very much for that wealth building journey. That is helpful. And everybody that came in a little bit later in the video, I think the first, I limited it this time, luckily, to 15 minutes. The reason FHA has rules, the 3 things that people think of when they talk about FHA. I'm not going to say it now. I'm just going to wrap up with this and I'm going to be closing this video. Thank you all very much for hanging out with me on a Saturday on this random midday live stream. The first for FHA is the silly answer that most people give. The second is the answer that I give when I talk about FHA. That's wrong, but I still give it. And then the third thing about FHA on why it really exists. That's all in the first 15 minutes of this video. I do live streams every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I answer all questions that come in. I've done this every Tuesday for over a year. I also put my email in the chat. Let me see if it will show up here if I do this. Macro. Is it going to work? Hey, look at that. Feel free to reach out with questions. Sometimes you want to ask a question that you don't want people in the chat to know you were the one asking a question. So send it to me an email. I won't reveal your name if you don't want me to. And I might make a video specifically on that, or I might just, well, I'm going to answer the email with an answer. Sometimes getting things in writing is an easier way to learn it. But then I might make the video too. Kind of like JNYC asked this question about FHA during a live stream where I wasn't answering questions, but I wanted to be, sometimes I want to do a live stream because a video that you edit and research and put together, yeah, it's probably going to get more views. It's going to seem more streamlined. But there are things that investors keep in their mind that tell you what you need to learn. But if somebody asks me a very detailed tax strategy question, I don't know. Taxes in real estate are great, so I want to buy more, right? That's my answer. But if you want to know the detailed thing, I'd have to go researching. But if somebody says, how do you calculate the yield? And how would you pick a market? Like that question and that answer come out because I have to know that in the 3 to 30 seconds it takes to look at a property to figure out if I want to make an offer or not. Yeah. want to thank you all for that. And remember, if you're not in my course, if you are in my course on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, starting next weekend, we're doing the month of August, live Zoom calls where you can join the Zoom, and it's only available to course members for that, literally digging deep into portfolios. Up until the 1st of August, I'm taking $100 off the course. So there's a discount right now. When you click on it, you go to buy, it'll be $100 less. I look forward to seeing you there. And if not, I will see you on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.